starts with a knock. You're alone in your car in a nearly empty parking lot, or maybe you're home for the night and there's a polite but very late tap on your front door. The request is always simple. They need to use your phone. They need a ride. They just need to come inside for a moment. But this isn't a chance encounter. This is the beginning of an internet legend that has haunted people for decades, and it comes down to one terrifying phrase: let us in. This is the original story of the Black-Eyed Children, and it's a chilling lesson in why you should never, ever give them what they want. Our story begins in 1996 in Abilene, Texas, with a reporter named Brian Bethel. He was sitting in his car outside of a movie theater, writing a check using the glow of the theater sign for light. He was focused on his task, alone in the parking lot, when a soft knock on his driver's side window broke the silence. When Brian looked up, there were two boys around 9 to 12 years old. They wore hoodies that he found odd, perhaps old-fashioned. Startled, Bethel cracked his window and the older of the two spoke. He was articulate, but his voice sounded flat and robotic, almost like he was speaking from a script he had rehearsed. He explained they wanted to see the movie Mortal Kombat, but they had left the money at their mom's house and needed a ride. As the boys spoke, Bethel felt a strong, unexplainable sense of dread. There was no logical reason for him to be feeling this way because, after all, they were just kids, right? The story felt off. Bethel glanced at the theater's clock and saw that the last showing had already begun. There was absolutely no way, even if they left right then, that they could make it back in time for the boys to see the movie. He paused, trying to find a way to say no. The boy's calm expression didn't change, but his words became more intent and pressuring. He would keep saying things like, "Please, mister, help us. We're just kids." And at one point, the older boy said, "Come on, mister. It's not like we have a gun or anything." Now, this freaked Brian out because why would kids say something like that, and why were they being so persistent? That's when Bethel looked closely at their eyes, and what he saw was nightmare fuel. There were no whites, no irises, no pupils, just two solid matte black voids. As his fear intensified, the boy's tone sharpened into almost like a demand. The boy said, "We can't come in unless you tell us it's okay. Let us in." Bethel noticed his own hand moving towards the door lock, and he wasn't doing this. It was like he was in a trance, or his arm had a mind of its own, like somebody was forcing his arm down. Terrified, he pulled his hand back, put the car in reverse, and drove quickly out of the parking lot. When he looked in his rearview mirror, the parking lot was empty. The kids had just vanished out of nowhere. Bethel didn't just drive away, he took the story with him. He shared his experience on an online mailing list dedicated to ghost stories. In the early days of the internet, a story like this, coming from a credible journalist, spread quickly. What cemented the legend was a second story Bethel included in his original post. There was a similar report from a friend in Portland, Oregon, who had a late-night encounter with a child who had the same black eyes and formal speech. The friend fled the scene after seeing other similar children hiding nearby. This suggested it wasn't just one man's isolated incident in Texas. It appeared to be a pattern. The story had found an echo, and from that, a legend was born. Since Bethel's post, the story has been told again and again by different people in different places, yet the details are often strikingly similar, as if strangers are describing the same encounter. The children are young, typically between 6 and 16 years old, with pale complexions. Their clothes often seem out of place or old-fashioned, like they're from a different time period. Their speech is stilted and formal. The words are correct, but they lack any human emotion. They appear at night, usually in pairs, and approach people who are isolated in their homes or cars. They have a habit of keeping their heads slightly lowered, revealing their eyes only after an inexplicable sense of dread has already taken hold. Their eyes are always solid, empty, black voids. Across all the stories, one rule is consistent. They cannot enter without permission. They don't break down doors or shadow windows. They ask, they plead, they insist, and this detail alone aligns them with folklore about vampires and demons, beings that require consent to cross into a threshold. This is a key element of the story's psychological effect. Witnesses describe a strong urge to flee, an internal alarm that they are in the presence of a predator, even when they see only a child. At the same time, many report a strange compulsion to open the door. And now, this leads to questions. What happens if you say yes? Most accounts end in refusal, but a few secondhand tales describe the consequences. They speak of sudden illness, significant misfortune, and a negative presence falling over the entire household. One story in particular from Vermont tells of an elderly couple who let two children in from a snowstorm. Afterwards, the husband was diagnosed with a rapidly spreading cancer, and their pets began to die or disappear. As more reports have emerged over the years, researchers and enthusiasts have identified several consistent patterns in the black-eyed children encounters. They need permission. This is perhaps the most consistent element across all reports. The beings, whether we call them children, entities, or something else, seem unable to enter homes, cars, or private spaces without explicit permission. Nearly every witness describes the same visceral, primal terror, a fight or flight response far beyond what the situation would normally call for. People describe it as a warning from the deepest part of their brain, an instinct that something is fundamentally wrong and dangerous. While not universal, most of the encounters happen during the evening hours or after dark. The beings typically appear in poorly lit areas, parking lots, rural roads, or dimly lit doorsteps. Witnesses also frequently mention that the children speak in formal, old-fashioned, or stilted ways. The requests are often phrased awkwardly, as if they're following a script or they're not quite familiar with how children would actually talk. Perhaps the most disturbing is the repeat claim that witnesses felt compelled to obey, that their hands moved towards locks or door handles against their will, as if the being had some kind of influence over the victims. So, what are we dealing with here? Let's explore the main theories of what they could be. Urban legend and internet folklore. The skeptical explanation is straightforward. Black-eyed children are simply a modern urban legend, born from Brian Bethel's original post and amplified by the internet's ability to spread stories so rapidly. Skeptics also point out that the reports increased dramatically after Bethel's story went viral, suggesting a form of cultural virality, people having experiences they interpret through the lens of a story they've already heard, or even unconsciously fabricating encounters based on the legend, and of course, people flat out lying for clout. The consistency of detail, skeptics argue, doesn't prove the phenomenon is real, it just proves people are sharing and copying the same story elements. Believers in the paranormal offer various theories, demons or malevolent spirits. Some interpret the need for permission and that kind of aura of evil as demonic characteristics. The inability to enter without invitation mirrors traditional vampire and demon folklore across multiple countries. Now, some people think that the black-eyed children could be interdimensional beings. They might be from parallel dimensions or other realities, perhaps unable to fully materialize in our world without some form of permission or energy exchange. One variation suggests these might be spirits of deceased children, somehow corrupted or changed by death, and now they wander and they seek something. Entry to homes, energy from the living, revenge. The theory doesn't specify. Some UFO researchers have connected black-eyed children to alien reports. They point out similarities with certain alien abduction accounts, particularly the description of black almond-shaped eyes and the reported ability to influence human behavior or thoughts. Could these be alien entities appearing in forms designed to seem non-threatening? Like a child, but not quite getting the disguise right, which could explain the wrong eyes, the odd behavior, and them sounding kind of scripted and robotic. But now, from a scientific standpoint, several explanations have been proposed. Sleep paralysis. Some encounters, particularly those occurring at night or involving people who are tired, might be explained by sleep-related phenomena where the brain is partially awake and prone to hallucinations. It's kind of like when, you're half asleep, half awake, and you have a dream, and it starts kind of blending and morphing into reality, and you think it's real. In low-light conditions, normal eyes can appear unusually dark. Combine this with anxiety or pre-existing fear, witnesses might be misinterpreting what they're seeing. This could really be kids that are lost or kids that are coming for help that, because of the shading, because of the tiredness, anxiety, paranoia, things like that, people's psychology kind of warps them into thinking that it's one of these evil black-eyed children, and it tracks because if a child is scared, they're not going to talk normal. They're going to have a weird speech pattern if this child's actually in distress. Mass hysteria and suggestion. The fear of black-eyed children, once established as a cultural narrative, might prime people to interpret these ambiguous situations, might convince people to interpret these weird situations as encounters, particularly if they're already familiar with the stories. Regardless of if they're real or not, black-eyed children have become a fixture of modern paranormal culture. They've appeared in countless creepypasta stories and online horror fiction, paranormal TV shows, internet series, YouTube videos, and stories and books. And the phenomena shows no signs of slowing down. Reports continue to emerge from all around the world, with people claiming encounters in the United States, the UK, Australia, Canada, and other places. Some recent reports have evolved the legend, describing black-eyed children appearing in groups larger than one or two kids and being seen in unlikely places like shopping malls and restaurants, not just isolated locations. The internet has also complicated matters. In the past, someone having a strange experience might simply write it off as unexplained and move on. Now they're going to Google search, "What did I see?" and it's going to introduce them to the black-eyed children phenomenon, potentially shaping how they remember and interpret their experience like some form of Mandela effect. So, where does that leave us? If you're a skeptic, the black-eyed children are a perfect example of how the internet can birth and propagate urban legends. The consistency across reports doesn't prove reality. It proves that people are good at repeating and elaborating on a compelling story. If you're a believer, the sheer number of reports from credible witnesses who had no apparent motives to lie suggests something genuine is happening. Especially the Brian Bethel case. He was a very distinguished reporter that had a lot to lose from lying or fabricating a story, but when he shared his experience, it seemed genuine. The fear, they argue, is too consistent and too visceral to be dismissed as something in your imagination. Maybe the truth lies somewhere in between. Maybe some encounters are genuine experiences with something we just don't understand. Paranormal, psychological, or interdimensional. And maybe those genuine encounters spawn countless imitations and misinterpretations. What we can say for certain is this: I believe Brian Bethel encountered something in that Abilene parking lot that genuinely terrified him. Whatever it was, hallucinations, supernatural entity, UFO, or something else entirely, the experience was real enough to shape him for the rest of his life and real enough to spark our curiosity for decades. So the question remains, if you hear a knock on your door one night and you look outside to find two children with black eyes asking to come inside, what would you do? Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the black-eyed children phenomenon, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos about the paranormal and the unexplained. And let me know in the comments, have you had a strange encounter you can't explain? I read every single comment and I will read your story if you post it. And remember, if someone asks to come inside, maybe think twice before saying yes. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and stay safe out there.